of Yasnaya, and Influence Kemen not wasting any time, sending a player up north. Kajowski going to mount up towards the top of Stalber Hill, maybe even break as wide as Kameshki.
It's a really interesting meta that Inco's kind of bringing out these days, because I no longer think that Inco has this set drop spot anymore. For them, they have generalized position where they'll drop on the map, but that's not their spot entirely per se. It's just a case of this is where they'll begin their journey. A lot of times this is more of a case of dropping on top of vehicles, because they instantly send it towards a position where they can start to play out the rest of the game a lot easier for themselves. It does mean that they get quite a lot of trash loot. We saw this towards of the end game of the final game yesterday, where IHC did have that absolute blinder of a match. But when you saw Nanabet, he was having that one shotgun available, practically nothing else on board.
T2K rolling up on the rotate, and it's 1-for-1 on the trades right now, but IHC are giving them a little bit of hell here. Legend taken down as well. Was this IHC trying to turn it around? A drop shot not good, and there's a sliver of HP on the inside. Oh, it's all coming apart. Godless bites back after losing a teammate to a knock. Alex is going to be happy to have had him at his side.
T2K certainly feeling Godless right there. No miracle from above to save them from that devilish presence. Seriously good stuff. Very snappy too on the flicks there from Godless. T2K looking for a little bit of revenge from match 6 yesterday, and are unable to find it even though they did have the drop. 4 AM, Qingchen maybe looking for a couple of shots, and right now IHC are just a little bit tight at the moment. They're all hunkered up. This could be a recipe for disaster. There is a vehicle on the outside. Qingchen right now starting to move out. 4 AM maybe hoping to get ahead of the pack here. They realize they do need to get further in. They made their sprint nice and early over from north of George. They were ahead of A7. We're still over towards Zaki side.
Influence Kemen at the top of Stalber now. T2K, they lost the majority of their players there, but they still have one. And they'll be in the hills, on the ridge sides on the west of Stalber. Playing on as far as they can do. 5th place right now, 51 points, so T2K having a pretty solid day 1 overall. Not a great way to start their day 2. Geek Fam, 7th place on the tables, very, very close by as well. From 4th all the way down to, I would say, 9th, there is that sort of clear bracket. Probably 8th, you could probably cut it out at, but it is looking like you have that central pack. If they can catch up to Inco and Alpha 7, fantastic, but there is that little bit of argy-bargy going on. 5 points from 3rd down to 8th.
I think it's a case of a lot of these teams having a great opportunity to actually move their way up on the leaderboard. Inco, again, set themselves up nice and early down towards that eastern side of Yaz on some really nice compounds, highly elevated too, so it's going to give them so much information. Kind of banking on this central spot over towards the eastern side. I think the circle, it could outplay them, right? It could head up towards that northern side, but they're playing the numbers game at this point in time. And for Inco, they can play the numbers game all day long. I think for them, it's really these blast out games that are super beneficial for them. They do taper off sometimes, though we have seen them start off very slow and then ramp up towards the end of the day. It's the only thing that really worries me about Inco. I think A7 has that kind of consistent streak where they get that momentum on board and it's good to go. And I think if we see Alpha 7 have a good game at the start of the day right now, could be very scary for a lot of the rest of the lobby. You're talking about some of these teams down towards the bottom side. I think it's still very malleable, like you said. Even down to, goodness me, 11th place, right? Because you're looking at this bracket, which is very, very slim. And just a big game like that could set you upwards towards that top side. So at this point in time, very, very likely that we'll see some big changes today in terms of the leaderboard. We could see some very surprise numbers on the leaderboard as well. Nova being down towards the bottom is a little bit worrisome. However, for Nova, we were just talking to some of their fans, some of the people who have known them for a long time. They do have the chops on them to bring out an insane couple of days, which would send them right towards the top. We've seen them do it before, and it's always terrifying to see Nova get on that streak.
circle popped on the east side. Does keep a little bit of water out on that east coast as well, but does allow teams to make that call, that decision to leave from Stauber, to move past Yasnaya, away from those fields. So a lot of teams can make a lot of decisions, and when a lot of teams are making a lot of decisions, that means a lot of rotates are coming into conflict, and that's exactly what's happening with IHC and Influence Kemin, as well as Buradam and the home ground team. Alter Ego, at the moment, it's going 1 for 1 to go down for Alter Ego, and Ponbit now left last standing for the squad. A little bit too far to do too much here, but Buradam are still taking heavy punishment.
Yeah, again, this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the day. It's that team fight that really is power that they are missing at the moment. Hopefully they can bring that back on board for the home ground fans. They get to cheer them on a little bit more. Right now, Ponbit, last member, not always the worst thing in the world, can hide out for quite some time, maybe get towards those top positions. Inco, though, seems to know something that everyone doesn't right now about these circles. They have a very, very good handle on where these are going to end up, where the center's going to be. They're a little bit down towards that south side. I wouldn't say that mattered. I think heading up towards the north isn't really ideal in terms of positioning. Right now, they have a very, very strong spot and a strong base of operations to play from. Just in terms of scouting, just in terms of getting that information on board, this is really good for them.
Buradam on 3 after their engagement, fairly centrally on this circle. S2G further north, they did spot out a player, I believe, from Influence Kemin, but that did get rezzed from down the hill. Vampire have not had the most successful of days from the glory that they found in PMWI. It has been a little bit of a fall from grace in their regional stage and the group stages earlier this in December back in 2022. It wasn't the Vampire that we were expecting to be able to come into this one, but they still have a little bit more time. You talked about Nova being able to put up massive performances towards the end, to in those small day frames. Hopefully Vampire can have that resurgence as well.
That would be ideal. It would be good stuff for Vampire. I think if you look at their December performance as well, it wasn't exactly what we wanted to see from them, but there were certainly those moments where it felt like they really had that go time on their shoulders, and it was a case of we just need to qualify, so we're going to pump those points up, play how we usually see them play. I think for Vampire, it's just finding that rhythm, finding that movement that works so well for them. At the moment, it feels a little bit awkward. Not quite there as of yet. Geek Fam gets some gear delivered from on high. Yuhai does not want it though. Sends right past, tries to get a little bit further in towards a compound to play from. 4AM, however, snuck their way in from that north side. Really good stuff from them. Considering they're over in North George, they've made a very apt rotate. The difficulty now for them is that they're surrounded by a lot of teams, but getting into this position without taking any knocks is very impressive.
Fireflux on the south side, coming into conflict with Vampire. With Vampire on the lead in terms of their position, could prove to be a little bit sticky. Inco still very central. North side, Alpha 7 behind the queue for Influence Kemin, and outside of the circle, quite a few teams going to be looking to push in from that northern side. S2G, though, they've made it up to this cliff face. Stalwart want to back them off, but that's easier said than done.
Stalwart. A nice spot for them. Up on high, Silas moves up. Tries to gather a little bit of this information. Very good angle, though, coming through from Scry in the back there with the DP. It's going to be hugely difficult now for S2G to crest this one. Not only with Stalwart in the way, but you're also looking at 4AM. This does make this quite the difficult exit. Luckily with the circle, they've got a lot of time to work with. A lot more time for Stalwart and 4AM to even cross paths, cross blades. I think that's the time that S2G is waiting for.
Silas peeking up, getting a little bit bold with it. Can't really afford to go down, but they do have enough cover to drop him back towards the rest of the team in the position that they're in, and should be resable, even if he does get knocked here. Losing Ray Z, though, for S2G leaves them only at 3, so they can't really afford too many slip-ups here if they want to carry on forwards. Nova spread out wide right now on this southwest side. Vampire looking to try and push between Paraboy and Order's position and Frozen's outpost on the south side. But it looks like they might have been spotted. Shots certainly being popped off. And there we go, Pika on the east coast, spotting out Hamzy down the hill.
Yeah, it was really only a matter of time. I think the Stalwart getting rid of this opponent at the moment would be very, very useful. A very good grenade. Pops maybe just a bit too early there. That could have been the 1-2 punch. Silas drops up, tries to send this player a little bit further back. Pika getting a little bit too big for his boots here, and Silas wants to let him know that it's not going to be all rainbows, just moving over this top side to quickly take position. In the meantime, S2G will restabilize. Stalwart's moved a bit further up, though. This is an excellent compound for them to play from. DRS, I haven't talked about them too much, but right now have a fairly good compound over towards that eastern side. Unfortunately, it is just a little bit out of the way. With a massive ridge over towards their west, they are kind of cut off from a lot of the action. It's going to keep them safe for a long while in the game, so we can expect high ranking from them.
You could see there that S2G were very, very worried about their northern flank, and for good reason. There's still a lot of teams yet to push in from that direction, and they'll have to wait and see what they can find. Order spots out a central position for Nenebete, and they're looking to put the pressure onto Squash as well. Order lighten them up. Becca not really in a position to get an answer shot back. Inko still at 4 alive with Vitali half HP down the hill. Vitali was a massive factor for them in yesterday's games. Hopefully able to put up the performance again. Oh dear. Up goes the vehicle, and Geek Fam cut Influence Kevin in half.
The Malaysian team, specifically Yuhai, currently on loan from BTR, has been absolutely fantastic for Geek Fam so far. And up in smoke goes Influence Kemin. Not the ideal start for them, considering they were on the warpath to try and ladder up just a little bit to face their Brazilian brethren towards the top of the table, second and first, respectively. Nova, though, great spot over towards Inko. It's difficult not to take shots from that position that Inko's currently holding in. It's a bit of a Hail Mary. Nova, on the other hand, a lot of position taken early. You did mention this. And I think for them, they were able to find the ideal spot for themselves just purely off the back of that scouting, off of that rotating, and just being comfortable playing as a solo.
T2K cut down mostly by IHC, but S2G let them go right into the water there. Don't even take the shots that are going to get the knock. Allow the player to play that close position. Geek Fam rolling up towards IHC. There's already been a knock this way. S2G should have a little bit of oversight onto this fight. The smoke is there giving them some cover, but IHC are crumbling here under the pressure from Geek Fam. And Geek Fam take them down. The Malaysian squad up to 5 eliminations now, with Yuhai needing to hit the deck and get some healing done. Across the way is the remnants of Influence. Kevin, Alpha 7 trying to rock up, and it's not going well. 1, 2, 3 players falling, and Alpha 7 coming apart at the seams as well. One player now remains for them, as Lil Boy looks for the res over onto Federal.
4AM assisting on that fight, but an incredible hold there from the final 2 players from Influence came in. Lil Boy showing what he's worth, and he certainly is worth a lot for the team. Done some really good work, and for Alpha 7, this is a case of that moving a little bit too late. They took their time over towards North George, maybe expected 4AM to stick around a little bit longer, was hesitant to send eastwards. 4AM had already left, and you can see how much this has benefited them. On the circle here, towards that northern side, we'll have to move down. Our DRS position becomes far more valuable. But Wolves, we haven't talked about them too much at the moment, but this is a strong spot. Have high ground. This would be a great chance for them today to really bring things back up to speed.
The Chinese team's not performing to the caliber that we maybe expected coming in from the PEL. Well, they do still have that opportunity, and Svan shows us just how much they're willing to take that. Top takes a knee, should be resable, but still. A nice little opening there for four Angry Men on that northern side. Still, a lot of players to push in from this northern edge.
I am not immune to caster cursing, but yesterday I was talking about 4AM quite a bit. I still think that this team has one of the best chances out of the Chinese teams to really make a breakout for that top 5 today. Purely off the back of just watching back the VODs yesterday and looking at certain positions that they took around the circle. Highly tactical, very cerebral. It looked good. They were in the right places at the right time. Not necessarily always winning those engagements, though. They still have that firepower to boot. So I think for 4AM, this could be a very good day. Still reasonably consistent yesterday. They do need to get a few more points on board. Ching Chen looks down towards Geekfam. Lights him up, big style.
Oh, they are just not going to stand the test there. Unfortunately, Geekfam eliminated. 5 eliminations into the mix, though. It's not an awful result for them. And in the meantime, Influence Kemen also full, so just Inco stands of the Brazilian top 3. 4 players alive for them. You said it was precarious, the position that they had. A little bit of a Hail Mary, potentially. But they have now managed to outlast everybody else that's surrounding them on those tables. So can they just keep themselves together at 4 and get deep into the game?
Still, 0 eliminations. Still 12 teams in the lobby. There's a very high chance right now that Inco is one of the teams at risk. AE also with just Pombit remaining. Very at risk. But I think for Inco, one of these top teams, it's going to be a difficult push for them. A lot of open space around them. You can see they're already being harassed. Nova's got a great bead onto this position too, and they'll be continuing to watch down over towards it. Jimmy scouts out just a little bit, gets some shot over his way. Unfortunately, Pombit will fall to Inco. First elimination of the game found.
Puts them up to that 70-point mark. They're now 8 points behind Alpha 7 on their run here. 11 teams remain, 34 players. So we've seen quite a few casualties so far. DRS, 4 Angry Men, Inco, Stalwart currently with 4 players alive. If Nova can get the res, then they'll join them. And it looks like they will be able to do so. Fireflux on the south side. Took some punishment earlier on their rotations. But Nova are looking to make sure that they feel it a little bit more. Wolves, they have lost a player, sure, but they're still on that high ground position.
The issue with this high ground spot is that it's very open. I think getting here early on, sort of forced to play this spot, but you have to play it very aggressively. And looking at Wolves yesterday, I don't think they have that strength, that power to really push out from this position to start blasting. Next circle moves back over towards Inco, in fact. This is a great chance for them to continue, to stay strong. Nova, in fact, pushed out just a little bit, and this might be time for Inco to pull out those DMRs they currently have in the pocket. Sends some shots back across. You can see there the Mini 14. I think I saw an SKS as well.
Seems that they are maybe potentially a little bit low on meds. You talked about how they trash loot quite a lot. They have taken quite a beating so far to stay alive in their position, so maybe they're trying to save those meds for a little bit later on. A lovely nade over the top, a lot of damage, but doesn't get the knock from Calci. S2G trying to put hurt in towards the health bars of 4 Angry Men, but the repositions are good. The smokes are there. They're looking to try and flow around this side.
Yeah, this is smart, to be honest with you, because 4M's compound currently is locked away from SDE. They won't be able to engage on this fight. So for S2G, they've identified this is probably the only play they have. For 4AM, they need to react to this soon. It's a great nade on the top from Ching Chen. Perfectly placed. They're out in the open. They could have taken the shots, but a nade like that will do the trick massively.
It's unlikely that 4 Angry Men are going to get that flush there, but there is a lineup coming through. There's nades. Hang on a minute. Svan just launched one over the top at S2G. Pulled down there into the depths. No more will we see the team from Turkey in this game. And now Inco on the western coast have Buradam to deal with as well. South side being pushed in by DRS. And the Wolves up the top have Nova to deal with as well.
You're going to love this play from DRS. I mean, they knew that this position would afford them time and capability. They've remained patient. Now it's going to start paying dividends towards the end of the game.
Long nade there. Nearly tags Svan, but escapes with nary a tickle. Tiger